country called Cameroon is in an effective state of civil war. Since 1982, the story of Cameroon has been a story of pain. It has been a story of pain because in the 1980s through to the 1990s, there was a very active attempt on the part of the Biya regime to impose everything French on the peoples who are English speaking in what is now referred to by the English speakers as Ambazonia. And what happened is that professionals, lawyers, and others went into the streets and said they wanted to retain their tradition and that they were insisting that what promises had been made by the Ahmadou Ahidjo regime be restored so that there is a proper federation. The country is in a dire state, and unfortunately, there is no end in sight for an amicable resolution because the administration of Paul Biya is still firmly in control. And as we know, that firm hand is being held by no other entity than the entity known as France. France controls Cameroon and controls it effectively and has ensured that the resources of that country are not used for the benefit. Hence, the claim by the people of southern Cameroons that we must have our own country called Ambazonia. PLO Lumumba here at the Manzoni Wildlife Estate here in Machakos County in the Republic of Kenya, here in the mother continent, and we continue with our interrogation of matters relating to the continent. And today we focus on a country known as Cameroon. What we now know as Cameroon acquired its name, which is rendered in different languages, from the 15th century by Portuguese explorers, Rios de Camaraús, meaning the river of prawns. And the river Wari, which they were talking about, flows into present-day Douala. And it was in 1884, after the Berlin Conference, that Otto von Bismarck seized Cameroon and governed Cameroon as a German colony between 1884 and the year 1916. Of course, like many other places, the resources were the target. And during that period, the labor was used by the Germans, but in 1916, the Allied forces took charge of what was then under German colonial rule and gave it as a mandated territory, interestingly, to two European powers. A portion of it was given to the French, the larger part of it, and the other part was given to the British. And between 1916 and the 1960s, Cameroon was governed in that way. Once again, the exploitation continued and the resources of the country were taken away by both the British and the French. And in 1960, as a result of the struggle for independence, the portion that was governed by France was granted independence with Ahmadou Ahidjo as the president. And of course, the official name of the country was La République du Cameroun. And when that happened, the portion that was governed by the British, interestingly, was known as Northern and Southern Cameroons. And in 1961, a referendum was held in that territory so that the people could determine whether they wanted to be independent as a part of Nigeria or to join the La République. The other part, which is the southern Cameroon, and which is the smaller one, then joined the French La République du Cameroon. And the assumption was, and those were the promises that were made by the administration of Amadou Ahidjo, that they would run a federal system. So the understanding was that Cameroon would be a bilingual state. Bilingual in the sense that the portion that had been controlled by the French would continue to have a legal system, a linguistic domination, which would be French, and matters would be run largely from that foundation. And that the other part, which was dominated and had been controlled by the British, would continue to enjoy the fact that it had a different legal system, a different linguistic tradition. But no sooner had that agreement been made than the Ahidjo administration literally forgot the fact that there was a federation, or that there was to be a federation. And they imposed everything that was being done by the French on the so-called English peoples. And that is the situation that obtained, so much so that even in the 1980s, particularly 1982s, when Amadou Ahidjo was perceived by the French not to be as loyal as he should have been. And the story is told that when Amadou Ahidjo was sick in 1982, he was actually cheated that he was unwell and he was about to die. And on that basis, that is how he ceded power to his deputy, Paul Biya. And between 1982 and 1983, Ahidjo actually wanted to return to power, having discovered that he was actually not terminally sick. And he did not succeed. Several coup attempts were made, and ultimately Amadou Ahidjo was exiled, I think initially to Senegal, found his way to France, and Paul Biya has remained a permanent fixture in the Cameroonian history. And since 1982, the story of Cameroon has been a story of pain.